Today you join me in Ohio, where the new upcoming Honda 0 Series Saloon and SUV are actually going to be manufactured. And as a little bonus, we have this RSX concept behind us. So in today's video, we're going to check out the direction that Honda is heading with their new EVs. We are currently in Marysville, Ohio, and this is an absolutely massive Honda factory that is here where these cars are currently displayed. Now, this is part of what Honda is working on to call their EV hub. So this is going to be where these cars are developed and manufactured, and actually coming very soon. So if you haven't seen the news on these Honda 0 Series vehicles yet, these are what Honda is calling prototypes rather than concepts. So that means that they're actually, in Honda speak, pretty close to production, despite how futuristic and concept-like these vehicles look from the exterior and also from the interior. Now, these are prototypes, which means they're not completely finalized. So there will be inevitably some things that will change from these concepts, or prototypes rather, to the actual full production model. But if this truly is pretty close to what the full production car is going to be, then we have a lot to look forward to. So these headlights do a garage door action. Below that, we have accent lighting, an illuminated Honda logo here on the front. And then the entire front end of the vehicle is a little reminiscent of, dare you say, a Lamborghini. It has a very flat aerodynamic front end. And this is an absolutely insane wheel design up here in the front. This is the kind of thing that I would be surprised if in this exact form makes it to production, especially as low profile as these tires are. I think that's one element of these vehicles that will likely change once they actually reach production. I would imagine we'll probably see some more sidewall. We might also, and this is all speculation, but we might see a slightly taller ride height as well, because these are pretty low to the ground. Also a very long wheelbase. Now, tons and tons of glass around the canopy. The visibility out of the front and out of the side of the car is going to be pretty spectacular. However, one interesting thing with this Saloon version of the Honda 0 Series is the fact that we don't actually have rear glass here. Now, you can overcome that with a camera system. It's a little bit difficult to capture on camera, but this light has a pretty spectacular 3D appearance that makes it look very deep. As you change angles, it changes the way that this taillight looks. Below that, we have a bumper that looks to be in a pattern of sort of like a forged carbon fiber, and then a pretty aggressive diffuser. How much of this is actually going to make it into the production model remains to be seen, but they say that this shape and this design is pretty close to production. I think there's a lot of people that are relatively fond of the front end of this car, but maybe not as much with the rear end, which I can understand. This has almost a little bit of a station wagon-like kind of shape and proportion to it here in the rear. Seeing it now in person, actually don't mind it. I will say, however, that this is actually a pretty big vehicle. It's wide and it's long, and I think it's especially big in appearance because of how slab-sided it is, but it's very smooth. I'm sure it will be very aerodynamic, and it's going to come with some pretty cool features. Now, Honda has not told us much yet as far as specs. So we don't know horsepower, we don't know range, we don't even know the battery size, but we do know a few things. Honda has said that they are targeting about 300 miles of range on a charge. We're also expecting to see this in a rear-wheel drive and an all-wheel drive option for configurations. Again, we don't know how much in terms of horsepower, but this is a new platform that Honda is working on. So it won't be a shared platform like the Prologue. And with this new platform, they're looking to do some pretty cool things as far as technology. So you may have noticed this sensor here at the top of the windshield. That is part of the LiDAR system for this car's planned level 3 autonomous driving capability. If you're not familiar, level 3 autonomy is not only a hands-off system, but an eyes-off system, one where you can basically completely depend on the car to do the driving when that system is active. And that's a very challenging thing to bring to market. It's something that Mercedes has. They have a level 3 autonomous system, but it comes with quite a few caveats, I'll call them. There are conditions that you have to meet in order to drive a level 3 system or have it active. You have to have good weather, good visibility, you have to have a lead car, you have to be on a pre-mapped highway, you have to be in a state where it's legal, you have to be going certain speeds. That's for the Mercedes system at least, but it sounds like Honda's goal with this level 3 system that they want to introduce into these vehicles is to make that a more usable system that works in more roads and more weather conditions. Inside of the Zero Saloon, we see, similar to the exterior, a lot of very cool lighting and a lot of things that make this car feel futuristic. So the ambient lighting goes all the way around this massive glass roof. We've got some built into the actual panels of the door card. You can change the lighting depending on what mood you want the car to follow. So this has all different kinds of themes that let you relax. And then here we can see it's doing what you would do when you would shut down the car. So the system is steer-by-wire. So since it's steer-by-wire, the steering wheel can flip out of the way, the seat move back, make it a little bit easier for you to get in and out of the vehicle. Once again, we've got very big screens here in the car, and we've got camera mirrors. That's not likely something, again, that we'll see for production here in the States. But one thing that I do want them to definitely maintain are some of these features that make the car look and feel really cool. Checking out the rear seat, this vehicle is a 4-seat configuration, so we don't have a center seat here, but it's cool the way that the seats kind of flow together with that console. A very interesting shape on the headrest here that once again makes it pretty futuristic. And actually built into the door is part of your seat cushion right there. So that actually opens when you get in and out of the car. On the backs of the seats, we've got these little screens that say Honda, and we've got on the back of the console here a little area where you would likely go and change your climate control settings, things like that. So pretty cool interior. It feels very special inside of this car, and I hope that this is something that makes it to production. One thing that is not likely to make it to production is the fact that this car doesn't have an opening trunk, this prototype. I'm sure the production model will, but the production model will probably not end up having a rear glass, so you'll use this camera mirror instead. The first of the Honda Zero Series, though, that is going to reach market is not going to be the Saloon, but rather the SUV, and this is that. So once again, from the exterior, very futuristic, kind of like the Saloon that we were just looking at. You have a camera mirror system that might make it to production maybe in some other markets, but not likely here in the States. And once again, we have a vehicle that should be pretty close to production. Now, similar to the Saloon, I would say that the front end, uncontroversially, on this car, I would argue is pretty good looking. I like the face. It's kind of square jawed. It looks pretty robust, but moving around to the rear is a very interesting shape, as is the Saloon, granted, but the shape of this is a little funky. I think the thing that stands out to me that is maybe not my personal not favorite thing about it is how much it cuts in and how much this bumper sticks out here at the rear. These vehicles are going to have NACS ports for charging, which will be pretty standard. And once again, this Zero Series SUV has really cool lighting up front. It's become a big theme with these two vehicles. It's not quite as spaceship looking as the Saloon. Now, currently these Zero Series prototypes do have automated opening doors. Whether that makes it to production is once again another thing that will remain to be seen. There's a lot of details that we're waiting on. But if we step into the interior, we've got a couple cool things to check out. So all the way across the dash, we have a screen. And because we've got camera mirrors, that's what we see on the left and right portions of our screen. So we can see some other guys in my field hanging out there at the other corner of the vehicle. So that, once again, not likely to make it to the US market, but here in the center, and I'll go a little wider to show it, we have a yoke because these vehicles are going to be steer-by-wire, so you don't need a traditional steering wheel. I would still like to have a traditional steering wheel. It does give you good visibility to the screen that's directly in front of you, and it looks neat, it looks different. I'm still partial to a traditional steering wheel, and I think a lot of other people probably are as well. But I do like the fact that they have kept some traditional controls. So we've got our drive selector actually built into the steering column, so that's not something that you're going to have to punch in on the screen. And we have a traditional turn signal stock. So unlike the Cybertruck, it does maintain a few of those traditional controls that I like. Another thing, the steering wheel is very blank. They might have this with a setup where instead of physical buttons, it's more of kind of a tap sensitive screen. And I'll be honest, that's not usually my favorite thing on a steering wheel, because sometimes grabbing the wheel, you end up bumping things accidentally. But we'll see. Once again, once it makes production, that's when we really have to reserve our judgment for, so we can find out what things are actually going to be like. But on this prototype, if they maintain some of the feelings that you get from sitting in this car of how futuristic it is, how much glass and visibility you have everywhere, all of the ambient lighting, even up here above you, it's very cool. It's an easy vehicle to see out of. The 0 Series SUV does have an admittedly small, but it exists, window all the way behind you. Although this prototype does have a camera mirror up here, but I love the way that they've incorporated lighting into this interior. It is a cool minimalist design. Again, I'm figuring that we'll probably have maybe a few more hard buttons than what we're seeing here on the prototype, but they are showing us a wireless charger, some storage here in the center, so we do actually have a center console rather than a flat floor all the way across. So it's a pretty cool spot to sit. And we can check out the rear seat as well. It's also pretty spacious because really, with an EV, one of the advantages is that you get to do basically whatever you want on top of the vehicle's architecture. So they've taken good advantage of the space back here. This is likely where we will see some climate controls. I gotta say, overall, definitely the SUV feels closer to a production vehicle than does the Saloon. But that being said, they say that the Saloon is a prototype and not a concept. So as space age as that seems, even compared to this, theoretically, that's more or less what it's going to end up actually looking like. So I really love some of the elements that they've brought in here. Again, like the lighting and like all the glass. That's the stuff I want them to maintain. Maybe a few more traditional controls up front for the driver. Maybe some more hard buttons would be nice to see. But otherwise, seems like they're on a good path. Here we can see the trunk opened up on the SUV. They have done a couple neat things like these shelves that fold down on the sides, as well as some ambient lighting, even all the way back here. And then it's a pretty low load floor, so that increases your trunk volume a little bit. Now we also have here the Acura Performance EV concept, as it's labeled here at the rear. This is what is basically going to be the fundamental design for which the upcoming electric RSX is going to be built. That is another vehicle like these other two that is going to be coming in 2026, so coming very soon. And this is very much a concept. So this is not something that you can get in and drive. It's not an interior that we can jump into, but this gives us an idea from the exterior, generally how the RSX will end up looking. Once again, there's plenty of things that are not likely to make it to production. For one, this particular concept has a 295 width front tire. That wouldn't likely do you any favors as far as range goes, but we've got some very sharp angles, kind of a coupe-like roof design. We don't have any performance details yet, but all of that should be coming soon since we are closing in on the production date. Acura does also have an RSX prototype that is further along, and they say they've been testing that out because this RSX is planned to come to market even before the Zero Series SUV. So this should be the first of the 3 to hit the market. And to make all these vehicles possible, Honda is doing a lot of retooling in some of their existing factories, like the Marysville factory where we are today, which already produces a number of Honda vehicles. But they're introducing new lines into this factory so that they can make some of these new Zero Series EVs as well as this new RSX and bring these to market very soon. So there's a lot of work going on to make these vehicles and their production possible. And we got to see some of the machines that are going to be responsible for putting these vehicles together and some of what that manufacturing process is actually going to look like. So some very cool, very futuristic prototypes here from Honda, stuff that we're excited to see hit the market, and getting to tour the factory here in Marysville where these are going to be produced. Another really cool addition to the story to be able to see them actually building out those facilities in the factory to be able to bring these vehicles into the real world, put them on the road. That's going to be an exciting shape to see cruising down the highway. I think it's going to make a big splash. One thing that I know a lot of people want to see is these coming in at an affordable price. Now, obviously, we don't have any information on pricing yet because that's one of the many things that we'll find out down the line when these get closer to production. And I hope the same thing, especially if they can bring in a base model of these vehicles, not just the Saloon, but also the SUV that comes in at a relatively affordable price. And then maybe if you want some of that more crazy technology, maybe more of the ambient lighting, maybe that level 3 autonomous capability, then you could pay extra if you want. But if they could bring one of these in to the market at a relatively affordable price, that would make for a pretty cool car for some people's daily drivers. So let me know what you all think down in the comments below. Thanks to Honda for getting us out to Ohio to check all this cool stuff out. And that's all for this video. We'll see you in the next.